Actually, I'm gonna. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. As you know, these are monthly events that we do every month. And it's okay, it's late in the day, it's hot. And today we're going to have a talk by David Wickley. He's the founder of PBwiki. PBwiki stands for Peanut Butter Wiki. And the whole idea of peanut butter is that it's a very easy sandwich to make. Right? You take a slice of bread, some peanut butter, you spread it on, and that's it. End of story. And the same idea for PBwiki. Right? It should be a really easy way to get a wiki online. More importantly than the topic of the company itself and the wiki itself is how he got there. He did the first version very quickly, and then he's a programmer. He's a honest-to-goodness programmer. But even so, he went from being a programmer to actually raising money, running a company, hiring people, and the whole topic, the whole point of this presentation is that any one of you can do the same thing. There's no magic in what he did. I mean, I really respect what he's done, his talents, but the reality is that any of you guys can do it if you apply yourselves to it. Now, part of it is we have an infrastructure in Silicon Valley that helps that kind of process go along. Right? You have an idea, and there's people that will talk to you and train you on how to get money and things like that. And then you go to the investors and they know how to deal with young people with ideas and things like that. So the infrastructure is there. But again, it's no magic. It could happen here also. And part of what we're trying to do here with this Techforum thing and some of the other stuff that we're going to be doing is trying to recreate some of that infrastructure here, so that as you guys go through school and get to learn your craft, etc., that you can find the rest of the infrastructure to help you. So investors that will invest in you, and people that will do business with you, etc., etc. So that's it. The other thing that I want to take a couple of minutes to mention is next month we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than this kind of function where somebody stands here and we talk and you guys sit out there and we listen, we're going to have what we call a Super Happy Dev House. And Super Happy Dev House is actually where he got his business started. And that's a place where a lot of people come to program together. And actually he gave a really good example of why that works. And he said, it's like painters or musicians that live together, right? They've been working on different kinds of music, etc., but the fact that they're all making music together, it's inspiring. It gets people to actually get things done. And programming is still not. It's going to be an art for a long time. So we're all artists. We're going to do a Super Happy Dev House. It's going to be a limited audience because the house fits only so many people. So as soon as we put up the page, sign up if you're interested. And that's that. And then the month after that, we're going to have one more for business people. It's going to talk more about how to run projects, how to run your company, and things like that. So it's more business oriented, but still, students are invited, investors are invited, anybody and everybody's invited. So with that, the other thing is at the end of the talk, take advantage that he's here and ask him questions about anything. Where did you buy his shoes? It doesn't matter. Ask him questions, okay? Don't ask him where to find a girlfriend or anything like that. Ask him about his experience. He's got a really valuable experience.
Buenas tardes. También trabajo en IRSA. Estuve platicando con algunos de ustedes y vi que algunos tienen un muy buen nivel de inglés. Si acaso alguien quiere hacer preguntas y no sabe cómo hacerlas en inglés, pueden pedir ayuda a mí o pueden pedir ayuda acá a Hugo. Pueden pedir ayuda a Miguel y aquí, que no son de Nilsson, pero son muy buenos en inglés. Pueden pedir ayuda a ellos también.
Si acaso que hagan una pregunta en español y
pueden hacer la pregunta en español y nosotros traducimos. Pero no se detengan por eso en hacer preguntas. Hagan todas las preguntas que puedan. Gracias.
Hey everybody. Hey. So this is unspeakably rude of me to come to your country and give you a talk in English. I know. My apologies. I wish my Spanish was better, so my apologies there. So what I have for you today is basically a tale of a geek who became a I'm actually, my grandfather, his job title was computer, because he ran computations, it's what he did. So I'm literally the descendant of a computer. And the talk that I'm going to give today is hopefully going to walk you through a little bit of what I went through as a programmer, becoming a business person, some of the principles that I found were really helpful, and then some things that I found were really not very helpful. Now, what would really help me is, how many of you guys out there are programmers? How many of you guys know how to write computer code? You've written Java, C++, C#, any of those? Yeah? Awesome. Okay, I'm giving the right talk. I'm in the right room. All right. So, one of the main concepts that you'll hear in a lot of software design is KISS. And while it's a lot of fun to KISS, we're in this case talking about the acronym Keep It Simple Stupid. And what this means is you sometimes can come up with these fantastically complicated ideas. They're really exciting to think about how you can totally transform the world with this new architecture. And you know what? If it's that complicated, it's probably wrong. You want to go and keep your innovations focused on something simple, something small, and evolve it from there. That's what's worked really well for my company. That's what's worked for a lot of companies in Silicon Valley that have done very, very well. Even companies like Google, companies like eBay, when they focused on the thing that they do really well and have just done amazingly well at that, you can generate billions and billions of dollars. So keep it stupid. Don't try and make anything that's too fancy. The first version in particular, you shouldn't keep under wraps for years and years as you're going and working on it. You should throw out there the first thing that could possibly be useful to anybody out there. Possibly be useful to anybody. And this means reducing it to the point where it's almost goofy simple. So the first version of PBwiki, for instance, the whole front page basically only had 2 text boxes. One said, what is the name of the wiki you'd like? And the other was, what is your email address? And then go, and bam, you were in your wiki. And I did it almost as a joke to see how simple could I possibly make the sign-up process. And it turned out that that joke was a very effective joke. It had a punchline that 2 days after I launched it, I had 1,000 groups go and sign up for the service. So you want to design your products, you want to design your services to be ridiculously simple as possible. You want to minimize the UI, you want to minimize the complexity of what's going on. Don't worry about making your service self-aware and able to solve really difficult problems from day one. Just make something straightforward that works. Don't try to build the Death Star, or you yourself will die. So what this means is, if you've got to put together something really, really simple, and then be able to iterate from there, because you can't keep it just very, very small. You're going to need to develop the product along with your audience. That means you're going to need to be in an environment where you can move quickly, where you can very quickly go and find bugs, ferret out bugs, move the product forward, add new features, and you don't need to worry about things like pointer arithmetic. So there's a bunch of languages that are out there. In particular, for developing web languages, you probably want to look at a language that's designed for web scripting, that's designed to be lightweight and fast. Some good examples of that are PHP, Ruby, Python, ASP.NET. These are all interpreted languages, which means there isn't a separate compilation step, there isn't extra overhead there. You just go ahead and start writing code that runs. So really, really helpful, fast languages. My personal preference is PHP, which if you're a language bigot is just atrocious, right? Because this is one of the most ghetto, stripped down, embarrassing languages that is out there. But you know what? It's very simple. It's not designed to be sexy. It's fast. It's incredibly well documented, and an awful lot of people know it. So if you're looking for help in writing PHP, there's lots of people out there who can help you with it. So even though it's not a very elegant language, it's a very powerful language. It's like a go-kart, not like a Lamborghini. Other interpretive languages that are not designed for the web can also be helpful, because you still get the advantage of running in a protected environment. So like Perl and Erlang are good examples of those kind of languages. C# and Java both require intermediate compilation steps, have a little bit more overhead. They're not necessarily designed to be web languages. They're all right, but it's a little harder to go and iterate really quickly with those languages. And then if you're doing like a straight-up compiled language, like C, C++, Pascal, or assembly, how many of you know assembly in this room? All right, got a couple hands. Props. Yeah, you probably probably don't want to be writing web applications in assembly language. This is probably the wrong talk to explain why that is. But the short order here is you want to put yourself in an environment where you can write quickly, where you can be fast, where you're not worrying about point arithmetic, where you can just go and get the darn thing running. And it's ugly, but you know what? Your market doesn't care about whether or not your service is ugly on the back end. They care about, is this thing useful? Is this thing going to help me? Did you write something helpful? So, yeah, the principles here are that fancy and clever are utterly useless. So before I worked on PBwiki, I spent 1.5 years of my life as the sole employee of a company that I had founded, working on a service to enhance instant messaging that was called I Am Smarter. Bit of a pun there, but and I wasn't, which was just a terrible irony. But I had incredible technology that was baked into this product called I Am Smarter. I had 4 patents pending. I had scalable systems that could support millions of people at the same time, clusters of computers talking with each other. But you know what? It's really not good to go and build a system that can support millions of people if you don't have a system that millions of people want to use. Goal number 1 should be getting you to the point where scalability is your worst concern. Well, help, I have all these millions of people, how do I handle it? Don't first try and go and build something that can handle millions of people. So that fanciness, that cleverness was really not worth anything. People don't care at the end of the day how fancy your back end is. Do people use Craigslist here? Is that popular here? Yes, no? Use Craigslist? Craigslist? Not yet. Mark my words, if you got 1 year, Hermosillo, you heard Craigslist. It runs San Francisco, it runs a lot in New York. It's a free classifieds ad site. So you can go and post like, hey, I have a room available in my home. You can post that for free, somebody can respond to you for free. There's actually no cost anywhere in the system and no ads. So people get really freaked out, like, what's the scam here? These guys selling my email address or what? But they charge for one thing. They charge for posting jobs in markets where Craigslist has gotten popular. If Craigslist isn't popular yet, then they don't even charge for that. There's no way to give them money anywhere on the site. It's incredibly popular. But the fact of the matter is, the site is very simple. Let's go to another simple site, eBay. You guys pretty familiar with eBay? All right, okay. So, don't need to explain eBay here. But eBay is obviously very simple. It's like the website's an embarrassment. Right? This thing's right out of 1997 web designs. Like, there's no Ajax, there's no fancy things coming in, there's no silver light, there's not even any flash. It's just like it's an ugly, plain website. But you know what? People don't care. The darn thing's useful. The back end, you guys probably have half all coded your own versions of eBay just for fun in your free time. I mean, this is not fancy technology, but nobody cares. Another core principle here is that you just want to do it. You want to go ahead and write that version, write that thing, that cool tool that's been sitting in the back of your mind. Just find a weekend, go and write something simple, bang it out. And it's going to be wrong, it's going to have bugs, it's going to be really, really simple. But you just want to get it out there, start getting feedback on it. Hey, what do you guys think of this? And maybe everyone you go and you share it with this can say it was a terrible idea. You definitely shouldn't have done that. I say, okay, but I only wasted the weekend on it. So let's go and take another weekend and work on another idea and throw that out. Because you know what? You have an infinite fount of ideas within you. We're not going to be running out of ideas in some way. Oh, guess what? We came up with all the ideas in the world. So you can just stop thinking now. Don't worry about it. We got thinking covered for you, right? That's not going to happen. So just go ahead and toss out an idea. Just do it. A lot of people, when they come up with an idea, especially an idea that seems really exciting and monumental, that might affect a lot of people, the first instinct they have is to not tell anybody. Because other people are going to steal my idea. And I'm going to tell other people, like I'm going to tell my best friend, then my best friend's going to go run off and tell his friend, and then he's going to go and write it. He's going to make $1 billion, and I'm going to be poor and trying to feed myself and be like, damn! If only I had not shared that idea. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of the value that gets created, even in the implementation of a simple idea, is in the implementation. The idea itself is not worth really very much at all. Most of what brings the value, the implementation, it's also the timing. There's a lot of cases where somebody went and tried something and put a technology out there and the market just wasn't ready for it, and 2 years later, bam, the technology totally took off just because the market was ready for it. So a lot of it is about time. It's about luck. You're rolling the dice when you put an idea out there. So you don't want to worry about bottling up an idea, because what you want to worry about is becoming the world's expert in your idea. Now you're starting off from a pretty good point. At the point that you have the idea, at the point that you're excited about the idea, you're at that point probably one of the most excited people in the whole world about that idea. And now your job is to become the absolute dominant expert in that field as fast as possible. The way that you're going to do that is you're going to talk with other people, you're going to get advice from other people, you're going to put a product out on the market, you're going to be listening to customers, and then nobody else can compete with you because nobody else will be as smart as you about that topic. So when I went to go and launch PBwiki, it wasn't really possible to create your own private wiki out there. But there were a lot of groups that I knew could really use that service of being able to have their own private sharing environment. So I went and put it out there as fast as possible, and I very quickly became, and by extension my team very quickly became, the world's leading expert in hosted wikis. So now we have companies that have raised literally $40, $50, $100 million going after our space, trying to target us. We've only raised $2.5 million. I'll get to fundraising later. And we're beating them. We've got more businesses hosted with us than anybody in the world. And the reason why that is, the reason why these other folks, even with money and talent, couldn't catch up with us is because we became the best experts in the world to go to when we were talking about hosted wikis. So for your idea, you're going to start off ahead of the pack because you had that idea. You've got the motivation to make it happen. You're excited about it. Go become the world's leading expert in that subject, and nobody will be able to catch you. If other players are out there trying to throw lots of money at trying to shoot you down, trying to be better you than you, well, first off, they're going to fail. And second off, man, if somebody spends $50 million trying to kill you, like, you know you're pretty valuable, right? And other people are going to go and come and offer to buy your company out, but competing against that other big company. It works in your favor. If there's a lot of people with a lot of resources focused on trying to kill you, you know you're onto something. So it's a reinforcement. So don't worry about trying to keep your idea hidden. You need to go and put the idea out there. You need to become an expert as fast as possible. Another important point here is open standards. You need to be able to take your data in from as many different places as possible. You need to be able to share your data out so people feel comfortable interacting with your service, that you're not this walled garden that's just going to go steal all the data. Understand what some of the basic standards are around these things as they're evolving. OpenID, for instance, really exciting. HTML is obviously a standard that everybody knows about. But use these standards to let data go into your application and come out of your application, and people will trust you. And then finally, personalize it. I think a lot of people, when they're making their first business application, something that's out there in front of the world that maybe they're expecting people to pay money for, like, we have to be all serious now. We have to be corporate. We have to say, please contact support. Instead of, well, I mean, it's Paul, who's my little brother. And, you know, no, say email Paul. Say email Paul, who's my little brother. People like to know that they're interacting with other people. I mean, it's too often that, you know, in today's modern world, we're presented with faceless entities. With people at the cash register, you know, we hand money to, and like we can't really look them in the eye and engage them as a human being, because we're purchasing things from the corporation. You know, people don't like that. Even really fancy business people who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, actually, especially really fancy business people who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, want to do that with a person. They want to have a relationship with a person. And if you make it clear when you go and you put your application out there that, hey, you know, I'm just one person, you know, or hey, it's just the two of us, and here we are, and hey, we'll put pictures on our website. And a brief biography. And yeah, I'm just out of school. And yeah, I'm still in school. I'm a junior in school. You know, I don't even have my degree yet. But here I am. I'm trying to do this thing. I love your help. Can you help me make this thing better? That's a really legitimate plea. You know, that's a really legitimate connection that you then can build with your community, who then rallies around you and they're like, this guy seems cool. This girl seems cool. Let's help these people. That sense of community is really what's going to grow the product, what's going to make it big. Now, how many of you guys in this room know about Google? Raise your hand. All right, well, oh, come on. More of you know about Google than that, right? When was the last time in this town you saw a billboard ad from Google? Does Google have billboard ads? Oh, maybe they take ads out on the radio here. No? Television? Funny. The whole thing spread via word of mouth. The marketing came from the product. And with great products, that's where your spread comes from. Focus on making the product great. Focus on making it personal. Make it real. People will want to engage. People will want to spread it. You'll build a cause that people want to go and rally around. So don't be afraid to be yourself and express yourself naturally when you're going in and putting your business out there. People like that. So a couple of warnings here, a couple of caveats of issues that came up when I was building my company. As I mentioned before, don't try and build the Death Star. Don't try and build something too complicated. Don't try to build something amazing. Now it sounds terrible to go and tell a crowd full of bright young students, don't build something amazing. But the problem is that one's imagination can easily outstrip one's capacity to execute. And you start thinking, well, I've got all these different pieces of my vision that need to be put out there together. It'll only be a few years before I get them all together, and then I'll go and put this thing out there. And you know what? You're probably on the wrong approach if you're doing that. Try and build something useful. Focus on useful over amazing. And I've ranted on this already, so I won't stop now, but you get my point. Because really what it comes down to is that in order to make something useful, you need to build something that the market wants. And you don't know what the market wants. You've got a hunch, and your hunch may be right. But you've got to figure out if that hunch is right. You've got to figure out how to deliver this thing to people in exactly the way that they want it. Something that really amazed me was to go and read about the guy who runs Starbucks, spends 40% of his time serving coffee. So he'll go around to different Starbucks, right? And he'll go and he'll make coffee for people. And he'll ask them, how did you like the coffee? Was that watery? Is there too much cream in that? You know, he'll watch people's faces as they go and they drink their coffee. What are they reading? Are they reading newspapers? Are they reading books? Are they listening to their iPod as they drink their coffee? Sam Walton, the guy who founded Walmart, did the same thing. Walked the aisles. Man, you're looking for pots? That's aisle 4. Right? What else are you looking to buy, man? You're just connecting with customers, trying to understand where these people came from, and learning continuously about the market, about what the market wants. And that means that you need to be out there quickly, that your initial ideas are going to be a little bit off, and you need to be listening to your customers to get feedback from them, to be continuously improving your service. And like I said, you know, this is co-developed with the community. And finally, you don't want to be afraid to leverage other people's work. If there are great services that are out there, if there's great pieces of open source software, if there's great people that you know, don't be afraid to reach out and use those things. Don't feel like, oh, it's not going to be noble if I don't do it all myself. There's nobility in $1 will get you on the bus, right? So you want to focus on serving people as efficiently as possible, and that's going to mean taking advantage of other people's work in a good way. So I want to tell you about the start of PBwiki. I was, as I mentioned, working on a separate project called I Am Smarter, and it wasn't really going all that well, which was frustrating because I had poured literally 1.5 years of my life, full-time, you know, working out of my bedroom with no pay to go and build this I Am Smarter service, and it wasn't really succeeding. And it's kind of tough as an engineer. You know, you pour yourself into something, you think, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, and it's just not going anywhere. So I put together this hacker party. You guys might have heard about Super Happy Dev House. We're hoping to hold one here in Hermosillo. And at this party, I was working on one idea, and I got kind of bored with the idea around 1 in the morning, and I registered the domain name PBwiki.com and started working on this personalized private wiki service. And so that was 1 in the morning. By the time I passed out at 8 in the morning, I basically had something working. I had people starting to use the service. We weren't in private beta for any period of time at all. This was not a secret for any period of time at all. About 48 hours later, we had 1,000 groups signed up using the service and starting to give really useful feedback about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they hoped to see in the service. There are a group of people out there who are fanatics about discovering the new shiny thing. They want to be the first kid on the block to go and know about this hot new web technology that just came out. And when you go and you make it big, and you become a big famous company that you become the next Facebook or whatever, they want to be able to say, I was early on. I was user number 17. You know, they want to seem slick like that. So there's actually a fairly big group of people who are out there looking for the next big thing, who will go ahead and try your application out, who will give it a whirl. So this is part of the reason why there's actually a positive cycle around just dropping those ideas out there. Because there's actually an infrastructure that's out there for catching these ideas, processing these ideas, and spreading them around. Now there is a downside to this. The downside to this is that a really successful company, what it'll look like is there'll be this big wave of people that'll come in and go check it out. All these early adopters who are like, hey, let's go sniff out the new service and be one of the first users. And then almost all those people go away. And then there's some of those people who are enthused enough that they go and tell their friends, and those friends tell their friends, and those friends tell their friends, and then it goes up from there. So there's this hump at the beginning. A really terrible application when you launch it, there's the same hump at the beginning, because everybody wants to go and sniff it out and see if this is cool or not. And then there's the slope on the backside, which never actually goes up at all. So for the first week, it's actually really difficult to tell, is this application going to become successful or not? Because you get the same, like, wonderful rise up, and you start drawing a dotted line, and you say, gosh, within a year, everybody in the internet is going to be using my application, right? And then a couple days later, a lot of those people go away, and you say, oh no, this thing's a catastrophic failure. But then a week later, you start to be able to tell, okay, is this thing going to take off? Are people telling each other? Is this thing growing? Right? So it's a little bit of a roller coaster ride either way. But there are these early adopters out there, and you can spread your application, and they'll tell each other. So, as I mentioned, the product is spread via word of mouth, like Google began taking out billboard ads or anything like that. People have just been telling their friends about it. So our product has really been the core of our marketing strategy. We build something that's very easy to engage, it's very useful for people, and it's very easy to spread. So people can just go ahead and tell their friends about it. And say, hey, go to PBwiki. It's as easy to make a wiki as making a peanut butter sandwich. I gave this talk once to a group of people from Swisscom, and it's the Swiss telecommunications company. And they just sort of stared at me blankly after I said that. As easy as making a peanut butter sandwich. Nutella! And they're like, oh! And then they got it. Anyhow, so a couple of my themes you'll notice coming up, slide after slide. Just 100% focused on building a great product along with our audience, listening to them, making myself very publicly visible, very personally visible. Hi, I'm David. I made this thing. It probably sucks. Tell me how it sucks, I'll fix it. And people will go right in, hey, this thing's broken. I'll be like, okay. An hour later, it's fixed. What else you got? Oh, this guy's actually listening. Okay, well, you fixed that, and that doesn't seem quite right either. It's like 2 days later, okay, I fixed both of those. What now? Really just co-developing the product with the market. Really, really important. That's the best way to build what the market actually needs. This sort of immediate feedback lends people to believe that what they say as your customer actually matters. It's really exciting. Sometimes you'll see those comment feedback forms, like after you've had a meal at a restaurant or something, like, how did you find your level of service today? And you kind of fill it out, and there's an address 1,000 miles away that it goes to, and you're like, oh, why do I even fill this out, right? Is anyone actually going to read this? Is this really going to change the way that the restaurant does its business? Not really clear, right? So a lot of people don't really fill those out. But you can imagine, if an hour after filling it out, the guy who started the restaurant chain calls your cell phone and is like, hey, I'm really sorry that chicken was terrible. I'm going to work harder on making sure those chickens are not overcooked. I mean, you'd be like, holy shit. You go back there the next day, you try it again, you feel really comfortable about giving these people your feedback because they're listening to you, right? And people want to be listened to. It's the best way to calm an irate customer down is if they're really pissed off at you and they're really mad because your product didn't do what they were hoping it would do, is you listen to them. Say, oh, those are some really good points. It should do that. You did mention that. That is a bug. You found a bug. Thank you for finding a bug. Thank you for your feedback. And we're going to go and fix that bug next week. You write back in the next week, and you fixed your bug. Thank you again for going and writing us. And all of a sudden, these people who hated you, who were mad at you, become your friends. They become your biggest evangelists. Because the opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy. So people who hate your product are people who really want to love your product. And something's just a little bit off. People who are apathetic about your product is a little bit tougher. Right? It's tough to convince people to care. But if people hate you, then they care about you. That's good. So thank them. And you'd be amazed how violently you can switch people around from thinking you're like the worst company on earth to just being your biggest fan and going and spreading you all over the place. And this has happened a number of times with PBwiki, where people wrote in really pissed off, and we responded directly, immediately, and personally, listened to their issues. We got them on the phone, and just like bam, they became PBwiki evangelists. Really fantastic. And then finally, just finding the people in the community who are going and spreading the word about you, who are helping you, and giving them very public recognition. So we had a really interesting experience at PBwiki about a year and a half ago. We had a couple of people going right into us and say, hey, thanks so much for your wonderful presentation that you gave in Chicago. I've been an avid PBwiki user since then. I said, that's interesting, we never went to Chicago. What the heck happened? And it turned out that one of our educational users was so enthusiastic about PBwiki that they went and did a whole conference-length presentation on why everybody in the audience should use PBwiki and how to use it. I'm like, jeez, we didn't even know about this until like a couple weeks after the fact, right? It wasn't that we had paid for this or anything. So we wanted to thank the guy, so we sent him some PBwiki t-shirts. And then we heard about another person who had just spontaneously gave a talk on PBwiki. We're like, this is a thing. We gotta encourage this. You know? So we set out a presenter pack program whereby anyone who was going to be presenting about PBwiki could go and let us know, and we'd go and we send them a shirt. We gave them some free premium wikis that they could go and give away. And we were thinking, oh, it would be pretty cool if like 20, 30 teachers went and signed up for this program and gave talks about PBwiki. We had to find a new t-shirt vendor because 2,000 teachers wanted to sign up to give presentations about PBwiki. So this was helping a community spread the word about the product in their own words. We weren't telling them what to say. We were actually collecting from them their PowerPoints. We were collecting from them. We said, when you're doing a workshop about PBwiki, how do you do it? What materials do you use? Then we'd go take that, we'd redistribute it. And we'd point to them and say, hey, this genius teacher over here, she came up with all these materials. So like, hey, you know, applause to her. It gave her that kind of public community recognition. So that was really, really powerful in helping spread PBwiki throughout the educational community. It helped us really quickly become the leading wiki provider in the education space. So as PBwiki was growing, it became pretty clear that we could grow faster if we had some investment. That we had been kind of making it by on a little bit of friends and family money, and that was enough to like put food in our mouths. But we were getting to the point where we needed an office. We needed to start building up the team a little bit more. And this took us into the wet and woolly world of investment. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is do not spend money before it's in the bank. Because we were right about to go and close that first round of financing for like $700,000. I swear it was going to close next month. So let's just go get the office now. Let's just go and hire this person now. Because, you know, hey, let's grow. And then, well, actually, maybe the investment's going to come through next month. Maybe actually it might be another month after that. Oh dear. So we ended up getting a little bit cornered for our first investment round. We had spent money before we had it, which means that we had to take it on terms that were not quite as good as we had hoped for. So lesson number one from this, so you don't make the same dumb mistake that I did. The money does not exist until it is in your bank account. I don't care how many smiles and handshakes and nods you've got, like, and sure, I'll wire that money to you next week. You do not have it until you have it. Do not spend money until you have it. Be careful about that. But that said, how does investment work in general? Well, the investors go and buy shares in your company. Now, I'm not familiar with the precise logistics of how investment in Mexican technology companies works, but I can say how it works in the United States. In the United States, you form a corporation. The corporation has shares. Those shareholders go and determine ownership of the corporation. When you go and get a new investment round, you create some new shares. You sell those shares to the investor. Now the investor owns a portion of your company. So they get a say in what the company does, whether the company sells itself, the sort of general strategic direction for the company, etc. So there's different kinds of investors. Again, this is mainly talking about in the United States, these different classes of investors. There are angel investors, and these are individuals. These are wealthy individuals who invest their own money. And they'll put in generally anywhere between $50,000 and $250,000. So you have to do a pretty good job pitching these guys, but it's very straightforward because once you've convinced that one person, it's done. There's no weird paperwork, there's no extra overhead, nothing like that. There's just one or two people, you go and convince them that you've got a great idea, that you're a smart kid on your way to success, and they'll go and open their wallet. The next group up from that is angel investment groups. This is where a cluster of rich people get together and kind of pool their investment money, and they go and invest in your company. And these are generally not such a great idea, because you've got all of the overhead of a much more complicated investment vehicle like venture capitalists, but you'll notice you're actually getting a lot less money. So I'll kind of breeze over this, but it's less good of an idea to go with angel groups, I think. Venture capitalists, these are people who work full-time investing other people's money. So they go and they'll raise money from pension funds, from the government, they'll go and raise money from very, very wealthy institutional investors, and they'll generally raise money in chunks of like $1 billion or so. And then what happens is their job is to find promising technology companies, purchase shares in promising technology companies, and then work with those companies to help them in about a 5-year time frame exit. And what that means is find somebody who's willing to go and buy up the whole company or take the company public. And that way they get a really tremendous return. So some of these guys have managed to make investments where they put $1 million into a company and then 15 years later get $1 billion back. So there's definitely some tremendous home runs that exist within this field. Most of the time, they're lucky to make their money back, but that's kind of 1 in 10, 1 in 12, just they hit it right out of the park, and they make millions of dollars. The next group up after that, you generally don't deal with until you're a very, very big company, and these are the private equity guys. These guys usually make investments north of $25 million or so. All right. So, like I said, the investors want input on a high level, so like what your company is doing, what the point of your company is, what kind of a market you're trying to address, and the overall health of the company. They'll take a seat on your board of directors. They'll be advising you helping guide that. Generally speaking, if an investor or a member of your board of directors starts getting really into the tactics of, hey, you sent out this email newsletter, and I don't think I like the way that you worded it, like, you want to be nervous about that, because they don't see the day-to-day. You see the day-to-day. It's cool. Just dismantling the school. Is this a Nirvana concert or a talk? So you don't want them to be involved in the specific tactics of running your business. You're responsible for running your business. You are the operator. They are the investor. So they should be helping you with the high-level stuff. You take care of the actual running of your business. So their goal, the whole reason why they invest, is a hope that either somebody's going to go and buy out your company, which means go and pay cash for each share of the company, or your company's going to undergo an initial public offering. That's where you offer the public at large the ability to go and buy shares in your company, which means that you can go and take your shares that you own in your company and sell them on the public market. Now, ever since, you guys know about Enron? Did you guys hear about Enron? Yeah. So that whole cluster just ended up generating a lot of really terrible laws in the United States, frankly, that make it very difficult for companies to go public. And so, actually last quarter, for the first time since 1978, not a single venture capital-backed company went on the public market in IPOs. That was the first quarter that had ever happened since the year I was born. So, things are a little tight right now in the U.S. economy, if you haven't noticed. But so IPO market is a little bit closed right now. Things may warm up. Things have got a shot of heating up, but it's probably going to be 2010 before things are nice and cooking there. So the main way that people are exiting is if they get bought by a much bigger company that's got a bunch of cash. That sort of exit is their raison d'etre. It's where they get money back for investing in their company. So that's what they're going to be shooting for. What's really important to distinguish, what's lost on a lot of people who are interested in starting their own business, and the idea of just getting a bunch of money that you don't owe back seems really appealing, is that these guys actually do want their money back. They want it back on a liquidity exit. So if you're looking to build a business that, let's say, generates $1 million a year in profit, but probably is not going to generate a lot more than that, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? $1 million a year in profit, right? The problem is that that's not nearly big enough to go on an IPO. And it's not really big enough for some of the really big companies to go and want to buy you out. So there's probably not going to be a liquidity exit, which means, startlingly enough, many investors are not going to be interested in investing in the company. So just something to be aware of. This kind of investment is not generally suitable for all sorts of companies. This is suitable for the sort of company that could become very, very large. The sort of company where there's a very plausible opportunity that you could be making $1 billion a year in revenue. If you're going to be making $1 million a year in profit, that's enough for you to take some very nice vacations. And that's why it's called a lifestyle business. Because the point is not to get some big, huge cash out. The point is to go and generate a lot of cash for you to go and buy nice cars and helicopters and take vacations to the Swiss Alps. Not bad. Which is pretty funny, because a lot of investors actually look down on lifestyle companies. They're like, are you looking to build a real business, or are you looking to build a lifestyle company? It's like, lifestyle sounds pretty good to me, right? But in the case of PBwiki, we decided to go with investment because we believe that this kind of lightweight collaboration has got the potential to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. In fact, SharePoint, which is Microsoft's fastest growing business unit, in the last 12 months sold over $1 billion of product, and we compete directly against them. So, investment is not for everybody. Oops. That's that one. There we go. So in the case of PBwiki, as I mentioned, I took some money from friends and family over the course of the 3 or so years that I was working without a salary, just trying to go and put some bread on the table. I thankfully went into this whole thing without debt, which was really, really helpful. I think if I had had a lot of debt going in, it would have been very tough. In September 2006, we took $350,000 from a group of angels. In February 2007, we took $2.1 million from a venture capital firm called Moore Davidoff. And this has been very, very helpful. I mean, I think that they've helped me build a much more valuable company than I would have built on my own. So the advice that they give is just incredible, because they've got visibility to everything that's happening across the business community. So I'd like to talk now a little bit about just personal development. What was it like for me as an engineer to suddenly start going into business? A field that I've got no academic qualifications for, I've got no real background in. And something I found really inspiring was, before I started any of this, was reading some business books about very successful businessmen. And I was shocked by what I found. And that was that most of these people did not actually have formal training in business. That most of these people even had tremendously unsuccessful careers. And that they would go, and they tried one thing, they tried another thing, and the first couple of things they tried all failed, but they just kept on at it. And eventually, they found something that really took off. So that was really inspiring me, that was really helpful. Going into this, it was helpful to have that kind of humility. That I had no idea what I was doing as a business person. That I was going to have to ask other people for help. And that was okay. It was okay not to be macho about it. It's okay to say, I have no idea what this is like to start a business. Hey, you started a business, can you help me? Can you give me some advice here? Here's where I'm at. You'd be surprised how many people want to help you. Because so many people who have succeeded because somebody reached out to them, somebody helped them selflessly. And they pay it forward. So because they were helped, they in turn help others. So there's the pay it forward mentality. It's like your parents. Like, you can never pay back your parents for having raised you, right? So the best thing that you can do is you can go and raise good kids, right? To pay that investment for yourself. So it's the same deal. You'll be surprised at how many business people will help you because they themselves were helped. The next point here is you got to know that even though there's going to be a lot of failures along your path to success, that ultimately you will succeed. Because you look at the odds, and you can see that those people who went in with the right mentality, who went in saying, I'm going to be able to come up with an idea that will do well, and I'm not going to bet my whole life on any one idea, but rather I'm going to bet on me. Because I believe that I'm going to be able to create a bunch of ideas, several of which are going to succeed, and many of which, in retrospect, are going to turn out to have been a horrible idea altogether. And that's okay. That doesn't make you an idiot. Nobody will actually remember any of your dumb ideas the moment you have one good idea. People don't talk a lot about Microsoft Bob. And get inspired by other people who have also succeeded, who also went and just were out there and scrappy and tried things out and failed and then eventually succeeded. It's something really important for your motivation. And you need to, I can't say this enough also, you need to just embrace the fact that you're going to screw up. You need to embrace the fact that if you go off and you start your own business, if you go off and launch something, you're going to have catastrophic failure, heart-crushing failure. You're going to have all sorts of people you care a lot about, whose opinions you value, tell you you're being a jackass just to go out and try to do this at all. And you need to recognize that before you go in, visualize it, be okay with it, be like, I'm going to have terrible failure going into this, and then just plow through anyhow. When I started this company, I was originally going to start it with a friend of mine. And we were working on the business plan together, and then suddenly he stopped responding to my emails. I was like, Misa, where are you? Nothing back. 2 months later, I get an email out of the blue. He'd gone back to Turkey and joined the Turkish army. Hadn't even thought to send me a text message at the airport, like, oh, bye, see ya. Just gone. It's like, okay. So plan B, I was going to work with my brother. So he and his wife were going to come out, and the three of us were actually going to move to Maui and go and start the company there. And then it turns out, well, they can't actually move, and they thought I was joking. I'm like, oh, hell. I need to go and start this thing myself. But I said, there's this checklist, this finite number of things between me and success, right? It's like the horrible failure list, right? And there are these check boxes, and I don't know what's written next to the check boxes until it happens. Then, that was another horrible thing that happened to me between me and success. Check. Now there's one fewer. There was one less horrible failure to go before I am a success. That sort of mentality really helped me, even when things were going terribly. So remember, if you're not failing, you're probably doing it wrong. You're not trying hard enough. So as I mentioned also before, you want to leverage other people. For the first 2 years that I was working at the company, I was the company's sole employee. I did everything. I filed the taxes by hand. I filled out all of the paperwork by hand. I went and responded to every single customer service support email by hand. I read the blogs, I designed the company's HTML, I wrote the code, I did everything. I designed business cards, I went to meetings, I was a one-man show. And it was exhausting. And at the point that I met with one advisor, who I really respect, he said, Alexander the Great even was not a one-man army. Don't try and take the whole world onto your shoulders. Use other people. So use your friends who are around you. Ask them for help. You'd be surprised how many of them will be out there, will help you. Use the code that is out there. Use services that are out there. Leverage other people, because you can't do everything yourself. How many of you have read Paul Cello's The Alchemist? The Alchemist, all right. Have you read Paul Cello's The Alchemist? Yes. So there's a quote in there that goes something like, if you want something bad enough, your heart desires something badly enough, the universe will conspire to give it to you. It's powerful. Bill Clinton, when he was in college, went around meeting people, shaking their hands and said, hi, I'm Bill Clinton, and someday I'm going to be running for president. Can you help me with that? And just like the guy had gumption, right? The guy had gumption, and you know what? Enough people said, well, this guy might be serious. I better keep tabs on him. And when Bill reached out to ask for help from them, they're like, sure, I'll help him out, because someday he might be president, right? And then what do you know? Something like that? It ends up feeding on itself. It ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. So be your own self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Believe in yourself, know where you're going, communicate that to other people, like, this is going to be a success, and people will help you. Because people always want to help alone. So when you're working with other people, you want to make sure to over-communicate. Sometimes things are so clear in your head. You're like, how could he have possibly misunderstood this thing, right? It was so clear in my head. And then you look at the email with fresh eyes, and you're like, oh, actually it wasn't really clear at all. So you want to be aware of that. You want to be cognizant of the fact that other people are going to have a hard time understanding you because it's difficult. Communication is a difficult thing. Something that seems crystal clear to you in your head sometimes doesn't come across to other people. So say it over and over again. Over-communicate. And encourage within your company a culture of over-communication. Make sure that you're really clear about when you're expecting to hear things back from people. You're really explicit. What do you need from people? Repeat it a couple times, and don't have a culture of just like assuming that other people know what you're talking about, because probably they don't. So you want to over-communicate. And then finally, firing. And actually, it's really important for a company to operate well that you fire people pretty regularly. And this means taking people who are not really working out with the company's culture, who just kind of don't get it, and letting them go on their own way. And this is actually not something that's mean. This is not something that's cruel. This is not depriving somebody of a fundamental right of a job. It's putting them into a better place. It's putting them into a place where they can have a job, where they are happy, where they are successful, where they are valued. Because if they're not working out and they continue to not work out in your company, now mind you, you want to do your best to go and try and encourage someone to succeed, give someone the tools they need to succeed at your company. But if even after that it's not working out, you've got to be real comfortable with firing somebody. And that's going to really help lead your company to success by trimming. You want to go and trim the branches. It's like bonsai. So just a little geek bit right here. When you're writing your code, and this is very much in order, your first priority is to make sure that the code that you write is useful. It's not elegant, it's not that it's fast, it's not that it's scalable, it's not that it's so beautifully written that it'll get you a job anywhere on the planet. Job number one is to write code that's useful, that performs a service that other people are going to find helpful. And if it only does that, if it fails at all of the other things on this list, you know what? You've done an okay job. So don't beat yourself up about it. Once you've made something that's useful, you want to make sure that it's something that's secure, that other people aren't going to be able to break into it, they're not going to be able to crack it, they're not going to be able to steal other people's information. It's something that's really important. So if you want to build trust in your application, you want to build trust in your service, you want to make sure that it's sealed down. Right? That it's not going to get exploited. Then you need to worry about the bugs. You need to worry about cases where somebody types in characters in Chinese in a box you weren't expecting people to type Chinese into, then it actually does the right thing. This is called polish. This is also something that's really important. It's not as important as making something useful on a high level, but you need to have a product that's consistent, that works well, that's clean, it's polished, and then the next priority is to make sure that the insides of the code are elegant, that it flows well, that it's expandable, that you can go in and work with it rapidly. That's something that's really important as well. And then finally, the last thing to worry about, and this is really the last thing, is that you need to make sure that it runs really fast and you can go and scale it to go and serve millions and millions of people. Because like I said before, if you go and you build something that's not useful, that is secure, and can scale to millions and millions of people, it's worthless. You've done all of that really hard work for nothing. So job number one is make something useful. At the point that scalability is a concern, at the point that there's a part of your code that's running really slowly, then you want to go and optimize it, then you want to go and scale it. There's a wonderful graphic, I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but talking about a piece of code that has two major subsections. The subsection A that consumes about 80% of the runtime of the code, and subsection B that consumes about 20% of the runtime section of the code. Now, as a programmer, let's say you're faced with a decision where it's pretty clear that in about the same amount of time, you've got about a week of time, you could make section B, the 20%, 5 times faster. Or you can make section A twice as fast. Which is the right code section to optimize? A. That's right. B might be more fun because you're like, wow, I got a 5x improvement in speed, right? It's so much faster now. That's really exciting. But what you care about is how long does the whole operation take, right? How long does A plus B take? And it turns out if you make A twice as fast, you're going to make a system that runs faster than making B 5 times as fast. So optimize correctly. Wait to do the optimization until such a point as you need to optimize, and then optimize for the right things. Just take care of the bottlenecks as you come across them. Don't over-engineer it to go and serve millions of people when you're not serving millions of people. So, what's important to keep in mind while you're doing all this? Number one is to have fun. That's the point of why we're here. That's the point of why we're doing any of this. The point of your software, really, the point of what you do, the point of your job should be you having fun and helping other people have fun. It's precious. Life, what time we have here, we're all going to be dead pretty soon, right? So we better have a good time here. And the work that we do should help other people have a good time here. And that takes a lot of different kind of flavors. Taking out somebody's garbage, paving roads, writing software, flying airplanes, all of these different things can help contribute to people having fun, right? And sometimes it's so easy to get lost in the intensity of the numbers doing this, and the investment doing this, and the optimization doing this, and the analytics doing this, that you sort of forget the whole point of the damn thing, which is to be having a great time. So don't forget, while you go through this arduous process of grueling failure that is inevitable, to be having a good time of it. Have a smile on your face while you're doing it. And you know what? You're all going to be all right at the end. So, that's my talk. Thank you guys so much. So I'd love to open the floor to some questions. Don't be afraid to ask your questions in Spanish. He's going to help me out. Do you guys have questions?
Preguntas.
How much is your profit per year? How much is the profit for the last year?
PBwiki's profits? I can't talk about that. But we charge $8 per user per month for business users, and we let other people use the product for free.
How many?
We have tens of thousands of business users.
Did you buy that idea from Craigslist?
Did I borrow the idea from Craigslist? No. Well, maybe in part that. Cool. Other questions?
When will be in Spanish your presentation, because people don't understand you nothing, and all you say. When you will make this presentation in Spanish, because they don't understand that.
Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry I couldn't get the presentation in Spanish. If there's a recording of it, possibly we could translate it. I can see that. Yeah, I can mail the presentation out to. If there's, I can send it on, and hopefully we'll get to all of you. You all put in your email addresses, right, when you register? Okay, so I'm going to do what I can to make sure this presentation makes it to you.
You said that in 48 hours you had 1,000 plus users already. Like, okay, after the 7 hours that you invested, 7 or 8, where do you put it up so people could start like downloading it? Like, how does that work?
So PBwiki is a hosted wiki service, which means that our servers run everything. You can't download and run PBwiki. So what would happen is, it's like using Google, right? Like, where do you download?
All right, people subscribe, not download it. But like, how did this 1,000 plus users reach in PBwiki?
So when I finished developing it, I sent out an email as I was passing it out in the morning to some of my friends who run blogs. So I'm friends with the people who run boingboing.net and also lifehacker.com. And I said, hey, well, I just did the craziest thing. I did a 7-hour coding sprint. I think I actually made something useful. So if you want to tell some of your users about it, some of your readers about it, that'd be cool. And they did. They were like, hey, this guy wrote this thing in 7 hours. It seems to be useful. And then people clicked in from there and signed up for the service.
At what point did you start thinking it was going to be like it was going to surpass this like 1,000 plus? Like, did that surprise you, or were you expecting, or at what point when that became bigger and bigger and bigger,
So it surprised me in part, but then I remembered back to my launch at Buying Smarter, where I had seen this big hump at the start, and so I was expecting it to go down, but then I wanted to see how far down, and if people were going to start telling their friends. And what really surprised me was that enough of the people who tried it out started really engaging it, started really using it, and started really telling their friends, that it was pretty clear after about a week or two that this thing was taking off. It actually had become more popular than the project that I had worked on for a year and a half. It was much fancier. So,
What happened? What happened to the other project?
so it's an interesting thing when you close down a site. Like there's kind of a right way to do it. And I tried as hard as possible to do it the right way. The wrong way to do it would have been like without notice, without warning, just like it's gone. The website doesn't even resolve anyone. So I messaged everyone on the service. I'm like, hey, the service will be closing down in a few months, and then hey, the service will be closing down in a month, and hey, the service is going down pretty soon, so you want to go use another service. And then even after I closed it down, for about the next 6 months, I made it possible for people to download their information off of the service. So people had a good feeling about it. People missed it. They were like, oh, it was a cool service, because it was able to do things that even still nobody can do. Like if you chat with somebody from home, if you go and search those chat logs from work, it's still pretty difficult to do. So people missed the functionality, but nobody was like pissed off at me, like you took my data and ran away with it. And that's enough.